think the Philadelphia Eagles are a sleeper.
That's interesting.
I think they're a sleeper, man. For some reason, they've been real quiet. And I don't know why, but I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles are a team that's going to emerge a little bit after all the stuff that they went through and talking to Fletcher Cox. They're real quiet, man, but they got their stuff in order.
This is Stacking the Box with NFL insider Matt Verderame and Mark Carman. Coming up on Stacking the Box, we have the former Cowboy, former Bronco, DeMarcus Ware on the podcast today, sleeping in his sleep number bed. Verderame, very comfortable DeMarcus Ware, and you'll hear it, but he's in the middle on those Dallas Cowboys.
He's got a right to be. They have a lot of talent, but what have they done? Like, at some point, you got to show it, right?
Yeah, and then Ren Daxt, the PewterCast. We're talking Tampa Bay Buccaneer football, baby. Ren is one of a kind. He's got many thoughts on his Tampa Bay Bucs and their chances for the back-to-back.
Look, for a franchise that has the worst winning percentage of any team currently still in the league, Buccaneers fans finally rightfully enjoying what is the golden age of Bucs football. Hey, might be the best roster in the league. There's a real chance for them to repeat.
This is it. They got to navigate COVID. So does the rest of the NFL. We're going to start with a little talk of how it already is impacting the season. And then the biggest news of training camp or non-news, Deshaun Watson will not be playing in the first Texans preseason game. Will he play at all? We'll discuss how that is going to play out. And yes, there, of course, we will have our in or out segment. We'll look at the NFC West. Take a look at some of the rookie quarterbacks, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. A lot to do on Stacking the Box, as always, Matt Verderame.
Absolutely. Let's get to it.
So, Verderame, what do you think is going to happen with Deshaun Watson?
What do I think's going to happen?
Yeah.
I think the Texans are going to let this thing drag out in the most awkward way possible, because that's what they've been doing. They don't seem to quite understand that it's okay to say, look, Deshaun, we're not going to start you. We're not going to play you. But we have to pay you because you're here and you're not under any kind of league sanction. And so with that in mind, why don't you go home? We will pay you while you're at home. We'll try to trade you. We don't think we can trade you, though, right now, because you have 22 civil suits against you. There's also some criminal complaints. There have been a total of 24 women that have come forward with allegations of sexual assault in some form or manner. Until that gets rectified from a legal standpoint, no team in its right mind is going to give up any kind of big bounty of draft picks and or players to acquire you. So why don't you just go home, instead of you being our scout team safety and catching passes out of the backfield and wearing a winter beanie in 95-degree heat in Houston? Why don't you go home, not be a distraction, not be part of this circus? And look, when everything's figured out, we will do the appropriate thing at that point. But the Texans have shown no inclination to do that as he continues to stand around in a red jersey and watch the rest of the team practice.
So I'm trying to put myself in the Houston Texans' shoes here. Do they think that if he is at practice, they are demonstrating somewhat to potential teams that, hey, it's okay to have him out here. It's not as bad. He's staying in shape. He's staying fresh. So if you trade for him, you're not going to have a huge ramp up to get him ready. Do we think that is why he's at practice?
No, I think he's at practice because the Texans are really inexperienced in their front office and their coaching staff, and they don't know how to handle it. I really do. I think, look, David Culley is a good man by all accounts. Anyone I've ever talked to in the league about David Culley says he's a great guy. I've never personally had the pleasure of meeting him, talking with him. He's 65 years old. He's never been a head coach at any level.
He's bad at media, by the way.
He's not good at media. But Carm, this is the point. Like, you bring in a guy in Culley who has no experience with any of this stuff. At 65 years old, he's already one of the oldest coaches in the NFL. This was, to me, and this is not by the way, there's not a slam of David Culley. This was a team that's clearly in a full-scale relaunch. Why wouldn't you hire a young guy to come in here and just say, look, like, to be frank, what the Lions did. Hey, Dan Campbell, here's a 6-year contract. We're going to rebuild this thing. We know it's going to take a couple years to get it off the ground. Let's work on it. The Texans did not do any of that. They hired a 65-year-old first-time head coach at any level. Nick Caserio and Jack Easterby are running the front office. They come over from New England, which you, I, and everybody who's ever covered this league knows. New England is about two people, Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. That is it. And if you're not those two people, you're not making a decision in that building. You're not. You're not. Like Easterby, I'm not saying he didn't have input. Okay, although Belichick flat out said he wasn't a football guy. Caserio probably did have some more input than Easterby did. But none of these people have ever had to deal with any of this kind of stuff where they've been making top-line decisions. I think for the Texans, it's almost just like hard line in the sand that they've taken the entire time. And it's like, well, we're not going to send you home. You're a part of this team. No, he's not a part of this team. If you're starting quarterback, your all-pro level quarterback is playing scout team safety, he's not part of the team anymore.
Where is Deshaun Watson? Here's the press conference. Where is Deshaun Watson during practice? David Culley. Nothing's changed. What does he do during the day? Culley. Nothing has changed. Is he in the stadium? Culley. Nothing. So listen, David Culley, when he came in, we basically decided that what we wanted to, when he's ready to do what we feel like he needs to do from a standpoint of this is a ramp-up period, and we don't want to get to the situation where we're having him do something that he's not ready to do right now. We decided that individual periods were the periods that we could get him in where nothing happens. Moving forward, we'll make a decision on that. So, hey, Deshaun, we're cool with you practicing by yourself, throwing the football, but as far as any real team getting ready to play on the field, learning plays, getting people acclimated, it makes no sense to have you partake in that because you're not going to be on the field. But here's my advice to the Houston Texans, unsolicited as it is. Deshaun Watson, we are not comfortable playing Deshaun Watson right now until everything is resolved. Deshaun is still a part of our football team. In this country, you are innocent till proven guilty.
Yes.
And we will do our best to support Deshaun and also take these allegations seriously at the same time. But right now, Deshaun is not going to be playing football for us. He will be at practice from time to time, but I'm not going to comment again on if he's at practice, what he did, or anything about Deshaun Watson. If anything changes, we will address it when it does. I understand how much interest there is in Deshaun. He's an incredible football player, and hopefully he'll be able to get back to doing that someday, assuming these allegations, eventually get cleared.
Right.
Period. End of story. Done. That's it. I probably went too far, actually, at the back end.
But, I mean, the bottom line is here, if you're the Texans and you're not going to start him and you're not going to play, then what is he doing there?
Listen, I think
it's ridiculous.
Well, I think on some part, you slightly owe it to the player to give him whatever benefit of the doubt is left.
Then start him.
Yeah, but okay. But you're not doing that either, because then you're giving him too much benefit of the doubt. So allowing him to come to practice and stay in shape and prepare himself, and in theory, if a trade comes along, well, he's been out here, he's in shape. I mean, I think that's what they're doing. And it's
my opinion
maybe
is
he should be just working out by himself.
If you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, which is fine, by the way, you're right. In this country, you're innocent until proven guilty. If you want to give him that benefit, which, by the way, the NFL has to this point, because he's not on the commissioner's exempt list. If you want to do it, then play him. I don't care. Then play the guy. But if you're not going to,
I don't think you can play him.
But my point. But then why have him practice? What is the point?
That's the middle ground that they've come to. I'm not saying, listen, no easy answers here.
It's inane. Like you either say, look, Deshaun is not suspended. He's not on the commissioner's list. We're playing him until further notice. That's what's happening. Or you say, look, we're not taking away his pay, but we've asked him to stay home. It's going to be a massive distraction. He's getting full pay. He's working out on his own. He's sending us updates. We're in constant contact with him, so on and so forth. I just think in the end, that's one of those two things makes sense. Anything in between is just this weird purgatory type of situation. And I will say too, like Deshaun Watson, just based off his football talent, I think, should make a case. He's a top 5 quarterback in the league. I would make a case that behind Mahomes and Rodgers, I might take him over anybody else in football. And I feel like this story somehow is like not a big enough story nationally. Like it somehow doesn't get talked about as much. Like we spent so much time on Rodgers, and we're talking about, can the Bucs repeat or the Chiefs this year? This is a 25-year-old superstar quarterback who is obviously facing some very significant off-field issues, is in one of the weirdest training camp situations I can ever remember. And it feels like it's like a footnote nationally. Like no one either wants to talk about it or will talk about it. I mean, this is one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen, not only in my time covering the league, but even watching the league. It is a huge deal. And it's very bizarre the way the whole thing is played out in a lot of different ways.
We certainly have covered it right here on Stacking the Box, so we can move on. And you brought up Aaron Rodgers, the news, not surprising that he's not going to play in any preseason games this year in all likelihood, which he, of course, did not do last year. There wasn't preseason and didn't do the year before either. But Jordan Love will finally be on the field for the Packers, and he's super excited about it. So Green Bay fans can get a little peek at their future. I don't think this is COVID related at all, or even his offseason related. It's just how good Aaron Rodgers is, period. That it's just not worth putting him out there and risking any injury in the preseason. But speaking of COVID, we're asking the question, how big is this going to loom for teams? There's, if you look at the Bills, you've got Emmanuel Sanders tweeting out accountability, availability, don't have time to deal with no BS during the season, #chasing greatness. He's letting everybody know, I've taken the vaccine. Hey, right here, no problem with me sharing the fact that I did it. And then you've got Cole Beasley, same team, speaking out against the vaccine and doing all the press conferences that he's doing. So I do think that this is going to have an impact on the season, outside of the fact that you've had coaches like Rick Dennison, offensive line coach in Minnesota, losing their job over it. Same thing in New England with Cole Popovich, their co-offensive line coach. It's right. That those are not head coaches, but we're right by the season. Coaches leaving. It's not the normal thing, even this early in the season.
And listen, I get it. For anyone who's listening to the podcast who's fed up and doesn't want to hear about COVID, like I get it. Okay, I don't want to talk about COVID anymore. Believe me, I'm exhausted by it. Every other person on the earth is exhausted by it. And I'm not here to try and make it like, to me, I cannot stand when people say, well, it's a political thing. It's not a political thing. Just stop. It's not a political thing.
The vaccine, for some. It is for some.
But it's not like it's been made political, but it's not political. Okay.
It shouldn't be political.
Trickle down economics is political. Getting a vaccine is not political.
Can you break down trickle-down economics for us?
I can, but I'm not going to do it here. All right. Now, believe me, I took a lot of poli-sci in college. I'm not here to be a doctor, but as an NFL analyst, I will tell you this. Teams that are less vaccinated, it is absolutely going to play a role in their season. It is. And here's why. Okay? For anyone who's not aware, the way it works is, let's just say, because Kirk Cousins has been in the news lately with his plexiglass box that he might enjoy during the team meetings. Okay, let's say Kirk Cousins is not vaccinated, okay? He doesn't have to get COVID-19 to go on the COVID-19 list. He can be around somebody who is deemed a close contact, and then he has to miss time, which we all saw that play out last year, right? Where you have 18 guys on a team would be on a COVID list. The way it works with a vaccinated player is if that same player, if Kirk Cousins was vaccinated, and he was a close contact to someone who was testing positive for COVID-19, he would not have to quarantine. He would not miss the game. So the NFL, even with the added games, a 17-game schedule, go ask Baltimore how big of a deal it was that they basically forfeited a game in Pittsburgh last year. If they won that game, they would have won the division. They would have had a home game. They would have had a totally different road in the playoffs, but they didn't. They were playing Robert Griffin III. Okay, and that literally changed the season. They might have won that game if Lamar Jackson plays and all these other guys can play. Now, last year, of course, it's different. There was no vaccine available.
Exactly.
I'm not blaming them for last year. There's nothing they could do about that. Now, however, if just taking aside even your personal beliefs about the vaccine, if you're a fan of a team that has to essentially forfeit a game or play with half their stars because of a situation like that this year, you're going to be pissed. You're going to be like, I cannot believe we're losing to the Lions this week because we're missing 7 of our offensive starters because nobody wanted to get vaccinated. And I get it. Look, people are tired of it. I'm tired of it too. But it is a fact of life. Until people get vaccinated in the NFL, it is going to be a story because it's going to affect competitive balance.
The Lions once again being brought into this, like
It's
Calvin.
not their fault, but it is what it is.
Yeah, well, Calvin Johnson with a non-thank you to the Detroit Lions in his Hall of Fame speech. Way to go, Calvin. You deserve to take that shot as Detroit took money away from your signing bonus when you retired after they, in essence, greatly impacted your amazing Hall of Fame career. But look, you've got, by all published reports here, Seattle is at the front of the food chain with over 90% of their players vaccinated. The Chiefs, Broncos, Falcons, Bucs, Dolphins, Steelers, also among the league leaders reportedly in vaccinating players and staff. Tier 1 individuals, coaches, front office, equipment managers, scouts, they have to be vaccinated even to keep their job. So the league is going to be, I would think, at least 90% vaccinated. So I don't think there's going to be stoppages in play or people losing game checks. But you do have situations where Bruce Arians in Tampa, he said, he told reporters down there that he would fine any unvaccinated player $14,000. That's the most that's allowed for not wearing a mask in an area where it's required. So
we should.
Right. So, hey, we're watching you, dude.
Listen,
period.
You have the freedom of choice in this country not to get vaccinated. And Bruce Arians has the freedom of choice to fine your ass $14,000. And that's his freedom of choice that he's about to exercise. So I don't have a problem with it. Look, I am going to be fascinated to see. We don't have to go down this road because it's pointless right now. But when the FDA approves this vaccine, it's going to be very interesting to see what the NFL does. Because I could definitely see a world where the NFL goes, yeah, guess what? You're getting vaccinated. And the idea, by the way, that you can't do that is butkus. You can absolutely do that. You have to have certain vaccines to go to college. Like, that's the way it works. Like, businesses can do that. We're not there yet. It's not, but I'm just kind of, something to think about. What will the NFL do? Will the NFL mandate it? And by the way, I bring it up only because the NFLPA usually kind of pushes against anything like that. They have gone hand in hand with the NFL this entire time on this thing. You wonder how that'll play out.
All right, let's take our first quick timeout here, and we're coming back with, we're going to have our DeMarcus Ware hit right now for you. DeMarcus talking about the Dallas Cowboys, and of course, Dak being back. And we also, I did this interview with DeMarcus the end of last week. Touched on Denver and their quarterback situation, and maybe Aaron Rodgers finishing up his career as a Bronco, because I think, all realize that it's not going to end in Green Bay. And DeMarcus was on the Broncos with Peyton Manning, who, by the way, just went into the Hall of Fame. Another thing real quick, Verderame, did you see Manning's speech?
Yes, it was phenomenal.
It was, but like he had to race through it because the NFL put a time limit on it. So he's speaking so fast. It's like he was on like 2.0 speed. Don't rush Peyton Manning, man. He's Peyton damn Manning. Like, I almost feel like there shouldn't, Hall of Famers are not all created equal. Peyton gets more time. That's the way it is. Don't want to hear as much from, some of the lesser lights that are still Hall of Famer.
All-time Hall of Fame. I enjoy his speech. Was great. It really made me think, like, if he wants to be the commissioner one day, that probably ought to happen. How many people have that much passion for their job? He was great. I enjoyed Isaac Bruce, who, if you watched it, I mean, if you know him, the Reverend Ike, and that's just moniker, and he's extremely devoutly religious, and he weaves quite a bit of that into his speech. But I enjoyed the part where he said, he had a scout in 1994 during the draft process, basically tell him that he wasn't very well liked among a lot of teams in the NFL. And Isaac Bruce was like, I prayed that he lived to see this day so I could tell him, how does he like me now? there are some good ones. There are some good, but Manning was fantastic. Charles Woodson was great as well. There were a lot of really good ones.
Did you get a little teary-eyed with Manning and his dad because you're so close with your dad around football?
I didn't get teary-eyed, but it was a cool moment though.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it goes to show, I think, like, the thing I enjoy most about the Hall of Fame, I could do without those 30-minute speeches. I'm glad they shortened them up, but it goes to show how much these guys really, it means to them. Like, how much work that goes into it. It shows they're human. One of my favorite speeches ever was Emmitt Smith's when he was talking about Darryl Johnston, and he got so overcome with emotion. And I just, it's like, I thought that was great. Like on Emmitt Smith's day, he points out his fullback. That kind of stuff is the stuff I really enjoy.
Right. It's the locker room. It's being in the quote unquote football war. And
right.
It's your whole life, man. You put everything into it. Yes, it should mean a lot to you. So it's always good when it comes out. All right. Quick timeout. Here comes DeMarcus Ware next on Stacking the Box. Look at my guy DeMarcus Ware. He looks rested. I think he had a great night's sleep. Working with sleep number, DeMarcus. Tell me why you wanted to. Why you are getting that good sleep. The options they provide for you.
I like it, man. I think that it's one of those things where when the NFL partners with an amazing company like the Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed. I didn't know how cool it was until I got one of the beds, right? Being a former athlete, recovery is everything. We know how big and regiment our wellness is, but now being part of an initiative to where not just the players that have played get the good stuff, now the Pro Football Hall of Famers get the good stuff, right? And when you have a bed that is smart, and what I mean by that has so much technology from sleep IQ that tells you, how well you're sleeping from your heart rate, from your movement in the bed, and then gives you a score in the morning. Or, how if you want to move up and down in the bed, get comfortable. If you want to go from 5 to 100, meaning like the firmness of the bed, you can do all those things, right? But sleep is everything. And so now you can see a lot of the guys now are getting back on the field a lot faster. And for me, being retired, sleeping better. And as you see the sleepy eyes, the Sleep Number did that.
I have it on good intel, DeMarcus, that Dan Quinn is sleeping a little bit better after seeing his defense in action. We know the Cowboys have a little bit of a mountain to climb after last year. What do you think of this Cowboy D going into the season? We got a little ways to go.
Yeah, I saw a spark that I wanted to see, right? I saw guys running around with confidence. Everybody makes a little bit of mistakes here and there going into that 3-4, 4-3 hybrid type defense, but I saw guys running around like, their butts were on fire. And so, especially like the young guys, getting fumble recoveries, getting pressure, but running from sideline to sideline. And that's what I look at. Are the guys actually filling their gaps, keeping their responsibilities? And I saw that on the defense, even though all the starters weren't out there. So I can't wait to see now all the starters get on board, play in that first preseason game and be good with it. So I'm excited for them.
How nervous are you, or how nervous, I guess, should the Cowboys be about Dak Prescott and whatever issue he's got going on here with the shoulder underneath the armpit coming back here, missing out on reps? Obviously, he's, maybe missing out on seasons. So you would think that this is some key time for him to get up to speed with his guys.
Yeah, I think right now it's all about getting him healthy. He's not healthy enough to play. Training camp is a bruiser on your body. So letting him get a little time off, get ready for the season, because it's a long season, right? And at the end of the day, get to what and that's feeding Zeke. Feed Zeke the football, get into, them play action plays, they have a plethora of wide receivers there. So I think that just getting Dak back healthy is going to be the key.
So you think the Cowboys should run their offense through Zeke?
Hands to what? Feed Zeke. I think no matter what, that's what you have to get going. You got all the offensive linemen back, and they're hungry. I mean, talking to Tyron, he's like, man, I can't wait to get into somebody's ass. I mean, that's what he's saying. And that's going all the way down the line of the offensive linemen. So guess what? Let those dudes run the football, move the line of scrimmage, take a little bit of pressure off of Dak, and now beat you deep with, 88, beat you deep with, 89. I'm just calling some numbers out. Players that can make those big plays that are out there. And I can't wait to see that, see them do it. Just get back into what they're used to doing.
Do you think that CeeDee Lamb could turn into a number one receiver?
I think he can. Right now, they're using him more as a possession receiver. But if they give him opportunity to, stretch the field a little bit, run up the seam, he can get the job done. But, last year they were more focused on him, knowing that they weren't running the ball as well. But now I think everything is going to fall in line.
So you win 6 games, there's going to be heat on a first-year head coach, especially in Dallas.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
I don't know what the future holds. No one does for Mike McCarthy, but what does he have? What do you think he has to show in year 2 that perhaps we did not see in year 1?
You know how usually they say, oh, we just want to see improvement. There's no improvement when you're coaching for the Dallas Cowboys. When you lose the first game of the season, they will say your season's over. That's just the way that the fans are, and everything else that surrounds it. But if you win that first game, okay, I think they're playing the first game against Tampa. I think is that correct? They're playing the first game against Tampa. If you beat Tom Brady, that lets you know where your standards are. That's just me. I'm a go-getter. And so for them to be able to beat Tampa Bay, that first game will let everybody know that we are able to do this and we're going to be all right this season.
I want to go back to the defense, and I was looking at the defensive coordinators that you played for. Who made the biggest impact for you on the defensive coordinator side? I mean, you had Wade as a head coach and as a DC. There's a lot of options here. Does anyone stand out?
I think one of the defensive coordinator, but also head coach was Wade Phillips. Like Wade Phillips was a guy that really let me loose and rush the passer. As soon as he came into, with the Dallas Cowboys, I think he was head coach. Yeah, he was head coach at the time. And he just let me and Anthony Spencer just get after the quarterback, right? And so Wade was the biggest impactful coach on defense that I can say that really made my career what it is right now.
I mean, does making a change at DC, can that have a huge impact on a team? Or is it more the talent? Because I mean, if you look at
it's a talent. I don't care what nobody say. Like I went from a 4-3, played with Rod Marinelli. I went from a 3-4, played with 6 technique with Bill Parcells, and then go to Wade Phillips playing 9 technique and getting after the quarterback. And we were able to change what we wanted to because the scheme was great, but the players just said, if you call the most simplest plays, we're going to beat the guy on the other side with it, no matter how they change. So the scheme has a little bit to do with it, but the most of it is the want to. How much are you buying into the system? And a lot of guys don't buy into the system, and a lot of guys don't like to change.
So let me move over to Denver because let's go back end of DeMarcus's career. And, you had that Peyton Manning guy and he wasn't, that guy. I mean, he's cold.
Yeah.
And the way I'm tying that in today is, what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers after this season? Maybe he could have a Peyton Manning style ending of his career in Denver. What do you think of that?
Whoa. That would be something a little different. If Aaron Rodgers goes to Denver, and I mean, they already got the defense already, right? And they got some great players on offense too. Now I know that they have the battle right now with the quarterbacks and trying to see who's going to get, those top receivers and tight ends to football. But if Aaron Rodgers could do that in Denver, Green Bay would hate him. But that would be a great story for that guy.
I mean, quarterbacks tend to end their careers this way. You mentioned Brady and the Cowboys opening up against the Bucs. You play with Peyton. Philip Rivers finished up with Indy. I mean, this is Joe Montana was a Kansas City Chief. Normally, this is how it goes. I think Denver might be the perfect spot for a good old Aaron.
Yeah, you know what would be cool if let's say if they did get an Aaron Rodgers, but right now, I mean, you can't think about that. He's in Green Bay. It's almost like who's going to be the quarterback right now between Locke and Bridgewater, right?
What would you do?
I mean, you got to go with the quarterback. I mean, both of them are great gunslingers, but who can maintain that? You know, once you get that pressure, string those plays out like Aaron Rodgers. I played against Teddy Bridgewater, and when he's healthy, he's a beast. And you're not going to just get back there and just sack him. So I don't know. I'm up for grabs right now. I hadn't watched, too much of him. So give me a couple games and then holler at me. I'll let you know.
Let's wrap up here. Are the Cowboys in the playoffs this year? What do you think?
If they feed Zeke and they run the football like they should, take the pressure off of Dak, yes, I feel like they can make the playoffs. I feel like they can go deep into the playoffs in the NFC East.
So you got them winning the division. That's what I just heard.
Yeah, I got them winning the division. They can do it. But it's going to come down to the end. That division gets hot at the end. So we're going to see what they're going to do. All right.
You're not overly confident, DeMarcus, which is fair.
Hey, right now, we're in the preseason.
Okay.
I want to get out of the preseason. That's with any team, with Denver, any of those teams.
Yeah.
It's preseason first. I want to see some guys running around first.
Your biggest concern in the NFC East?
I think the Philadelphia Eagles are a sleeper.
That's interesting.
I think they're a sleeper, man. For some reason, they've been real quiet, and I don't know why, but I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles are a team that's going to emerge a little bit after all the stuff that they went through. And talking to Fletcher Cox, they're real quiet, man, but they got their stuff in order.
All right. I didn't think that was coming. That's a good curveball.
Yeah.
DeMarcus, great to see you. We'll
thank you guys thank you for inviting me on, and man, tell everybody check out, Sleep Number 360 bed, man. It's amazing. After, 3 back surgeries, I sleep well. And I know you can see the sleepy eyes a little bit right now. I'm on vacation, but guess what? I'm still enjoying myself, and Sleep Number is part of that.
All I see is a big smile. You look rested. Take care, DeMarcus.
All right, thanks.
We continue stacking the box as we move into the future. Rendaxt has watched the Tampa Bay Buccaneers be awful at football for a long time, and now he's preparing to be a podcaster who is looking to go back-to-back. The PewterCast is an outstanding podcast for you Buccaneer and NFL football fans everywhere. Ren, we appreciate you taking time. Congratulations on having Tom Brady and winning a Super Bowl.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the congratulations. I will say last year, like you alluded to about watching bad football for a very long time, some of the newer NFL fans may not know that the Bucs went a full decade without winning more than 5 games. And I was a fan through all of it, but it was definitely weird and a change to do a podcast on a team that it's a lot easier when you're losing. I'll tell you what, because you can come on and point stuff out, and you can do like a hour show on the linebackers. But when, everyone's back and, people are projecting like 8-9 Pro Bowlers, and we have the best odds to go back to the Super Bowl, it's not quite as easy to find content, but that is my only very small complaint.
For you last year, it was an interesting year because before we go into the future, we'll just rewind real quick. You guys were 7-5 at one point.
Yeah.
And, a lot of talent. Everybody could see how talented the team was, but the defense was even carrying the offense really early. Mm-hmm. Then things really came together in the second half of that Chiefs game in the regular season, and then kind of went from there. But you're going to the playoffs as a 5 seed because the Saints win the division. So at what point during the playoffs were you like, yeah, I think this team's going to win the Super Bowl, or I think it can win the Super Bowl? Was that in the Washington game? Was it before the playoffs? Was it after the Saints game? Like, when did you lock in at that point?
I think it was, everyone was talking about 7-5, no big deal. Obviously, we would like to have better showings during the regular season because right before that Chiefs game was the other primetime game against the Saints, where Drew Brees just drove downfield, picked us apart, and I think we're down 35 by halftime. It was embarrassing. And then the Chiefs come to town, and Tyreek Hill is doing the peace sign, doing backflips, and 2 touchdowns and over 150 yards or so in the first quarter against the secondary. And as a fan, it was embarrassing because this isn't what we signed up for, or at least hope we didn't sign up for. Then the bye week came, and we had the Minnesota Vikings, the Atlanta Falcons, the Detroit Lions, and finish off the Carolina Panthers. And they made the coaching staff, the Buccaneers, made 2 very big decisions. One, they were going to do everything they could to keep Brady upright. That meant helping out Donovan Smith, the left tackle, with Gronk more than usual. BA loves Bruce Arians, the head coach of the Buccaneers, loves to put out 5 guys in routes. They decided, hey, 4 is good enough with the talent we have. So we're going to keep Brady upright. And secondly, Todd Bowles, who, if you're a Jets fan, would not go away from cover 1, deep safety, wouldn't change. Came out of the bye week. They did 2 safeties. Said they're not going to be us over the top. We're going to run some mesh man concepts underneath their young athletic corners. Of course, with Devin White and Levante David being 2 very fast and athletic linebackers. And we're going to roll dice, see what happens. But as a Bucs fan, you have to get by the Saints. You just have to. We had lost 5 in a row to the Saints, who we played twice a year, obviously. And I thought we were going to win the Saints game, but once we, vanquished our arch enemy, the Packers weren't even a forethought. And then when it came to the Super Bowl, it was like our 2 left tackles are out, and everyone's picking the Chiefs. And I'm sitting here going, you double Tyreek Hill, you put Levante David on Travis Kelce. That may not work, but you can give him help later. Like, if Mahomes doesn't force the ball to Tyreek Hill, they're going to have trouble scoring. And so there we are, winning the Super Bowl at home.
Yeah, let's go right there into the future here, Ren. The Chiefs are the odds-on favorite right now to win it all this year, and the Bucs are second. And if you look at Vegas's numbers, there's a significant gap down to 3 in Buffalo, and then the Ravens and the Packers, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the Bucs are overrated? A little too much confidence in Tampa Bay, or do you think that they're right where they should be?
Last year, I would have said they're completely overrated. Like Tom Brady hadn't taken a snap, even in practice, and NFL Network and ESPN. Like, Bucs are going to the Super Bowl. Here we go. Like, they were handing us the title. And at one point, like Matt said, we were 7-5 and going into the bye week, and nothing was guaranteed except we weren't going to win the division. But this year, no, like, we're not. I was a little upset when you told me the Chiefs were actually favored more. We brought everyone back. Shaq Barrett's back. Chris Godwin's back. Dominican Sue's back. I know I'm missing Leonard Fournette's back. Antonio Brown's back. Gronk is back. All these people had to be signed. So like our top 25, 26 guys are all back. We lost our first guy off the bench, tackle, and our 4th safety. That's who we lost this year. And then we had our draft, and we had our Giovanni Bernard, who is going to be perfect for this offense. He is killing it in training camp. Again, like everyone says, but it's true with this. If there's no major injuries, and it's really just Tom Brady, because the depth on this team, it's laughable. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing to even talk about how deep some of these positions are. If Tom Brady plays all 17 games, the Bucs are in the playoffs. Period. End of story. Period. End of story.
I think I agree. Look, I always try to go by history, and I always say that, look, it's really hard to repeat. It's really hard to even get back to the Super Bowl, right? We saw Kansas City come one win away. They got to the Super Bowl, of course, didn't win it. Haven't had a team do it famously now since the 03-04 Pats. But when I look at the season, I think they're the 2 best teams in football. Like, I really just think they're just both going to be back in the Super Bowl. And I think the question with Kansas City is the offensive line and that coming together. And with Tampa, I think it's age. That's the big question, right? Like, there are a lot of guys who are 30 plus. Brady, of course, is the magician, and we'll talk about him in a minute at 44. But, when you have older players, you have injury concerns. That to me is the only real concern for Tampa. Just guys who are over that age. Gronk's had injuries in the past. Antonio Brown, can he stay healthy? Guys like Ndamukong Suh. Because last year, the Bucs, really their big injury was Vita Vea, but he came back in the postseason, and they were really healthy. And so I always look at that, but I I give the Bucs a pretty good shot to repeat. I think they're the most talented roster in football. I think the question is just really a question of health, and I think it's where are the Packers? The Packers to me are the wild card in this. Does Rodgers go scorched earth or do they fall apart? But I think the Bucs have one huge advantage. The division's terrible, so they're going to win the division, and they have a pretty easy schedule because of it.
Well, the NFC North's not exactly the premier division in football either. I'll take Green Bay, but I guess I'll be the minority right now. I just gonna bet against three-peat and age and Brady being 44 years old, which you just teed up. Verderame. Ren, he's 44. Things, right now he's probably eating kale and doing Pilates and giving himself an enema. And everything possible to stay healthy. Are you worried about his age?
No, I'm not. I mean, it's like, here's a quick little story. When we first, I should quit saying when the Buccaneers first signed Tom Brady, we went out and found a beat reporter for the Patriots to come on the podcast. And he started the conversation by, I just want to say it was my honor and privilege to ask Tom Brady questions for 2 years on the beat reporter. And I'm like, what? What are you talking? What do you mean it was your honor and privilege? Like, what is going on here? And you hear about this sort of like loyalty and love to Tom Brady above everybody else. But watching Tom Brady for just 1 year, and I know the Super Bowl, it's kind of easy, but even before that, just sort of, we call it the Brady effect. Everyone calls it the Brady effect. If he tells me he's going to walk on water, I'm betting that he's going to do it. I'm just because he's the type of guy, he's not going to say, I'm going to walk on water and no, he can't do it. So yes, he's going to do everything possible. Is his age a factor? No, I don't like, he's in such great shape. It's all about, it's more like kind of like Pilates, all about stretching and pliability. Pliability is this huge thing. Hydration and pliability and get your sleep. Like that's what he says. Like those are the things. And he's been doing it forever. He can play as long as he wants to. He really can.
I really wonder some days he's going to play like he's like 50. I know he won't, but there's some days you'll look at him and you're like, hey, maybe. I think his biggest value to the Bucs really is not his arm, it's his mind. I think, look, if you go back and you look in the playoffs for Tampa, now, of course, the defense was great. Like everybody knows it. But Brady in the playoffs, he was fine against Washington. Mm-hmm. He was not good against New Orleans. Mm-hmm. He had a second half against Green Bay. He was very good in the first half against Green Bay. The second half against Green Bay, he was terrible.
Tried to lose the game.
Yeah. Really almost cost him it. And then the Super Bowl, to be fair, he didn't have to do much because they really just kind of ran the ball and played, pitch and catch with these short routes. My point is, I'm not knocking him at all, but the Tampa Bay roster is so good around him. Mm-hmm. Pretty much has to distribute the ball, not make big mistakes. Look, he doesn't have the arm he did 10 years ago. Nobody's going to at 44 years old, but he's still good enough to win. To me, and I mentioned the older guys being my main concern. Brady is not one of them. Right. My bigger concern are guys in the trenches who are 30 plus. Gronk, who's got a long history of that, because that is my concern that if Brady has to carry a lot more of it, kind of like he did in New England at the end,
right?
Then it becomes an issue. But if he doesn't have to do that and he can throw for 250 yards a game and just play great in the red zone, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. He's still healthier than most guys in the league, even at his advanced age.
Who do you guys think is the Bucs' biggest challenge? Ren, go ahead. In the NFC, and we're just talking about getting to the Super Bowl.
Sure. Injuries. I'm just kidding, but yeah, that's it. Of course, Green Bay, like you picked there, Mark. Aaron Rodgers, is he going to scorch the earth? Well, he scorched the earth last year. They went 13-3, and I think they went 13-3 the year before that. He won the MVP last year. It just didn't kind of work out in the end there. So yeah, it's Green Bay and Tampa, and I don't know, pick a name out of the hat. There's really not much, and it's so weird for me as a Bucs fan to kind of think like this. It's usually it's like, okay, you look at the schedule, go, yeah, we can go 10-6, we can go 10-6 if every single thing goes perfect. Like my tight end has his best career year. The second year player who was kind of promising at corner turns into a tier 1 corner. But with these things, it's like. The roster is so deep and has so much experience. It's if they just play to a median year, they're still going to be favored in every single game they play. So, I think they're getting the playoffs it's almost a no-brainer. I would take any odds on that. I really would, with the caveat, of course, Brady goes. Actually, I've been saying on my pod, Blaine Gabbert can win 11 games with this team. And I know everyone laughs at Blaine Gabbert, and I just bring up, well, that's what you said about Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill was a complete joke before he went to Tennessee. And Bruce Arians, who knows a lot about quarterbacks, he loves Blaine Gabbert. He actually said recently, and this is total hyperbole, but he said Blaine Gabbert's the most underrated player in the NFL. So Jason Light, the GM, loves him. So anyway, it's when it gets to the playoffs, it's sort of any given Sunday. So yeah, right now we can say Green Bay. Who else is there?
I was going to say, I think
Rams?
they'll lead the NFC West, and whoever wins the division in the NFC West
will be good.
Is probably the other one, right? Because whoever wins that division is a hell of a team. It's a great division. I almost think in some ways, now, I believe you got to have a great quarterback to win. You just do. If you look at through the years, right? I mean, we're talking who are the last handful of guys to win it, right? It's Brady, or it's Mahomes, or it's Manning, or it's Roethlisberger, Rodgers. I think Seattle's the team that you throw in there only because Wilson's a great player. He's unorthodox. They have weapons. They can throw the ball down the field. The Rams are a team, I don't know what to make of the Rams. They could win 10 games and be a wild card team, and that wouldn't surprise me. They could also be really good. I just don't know. The Niners, if Trey Lance is the real deal right out of the chute, then they're interesting because their defense can do a lot of different things. I just don't know. Would I bet against Brady against a rookie? No, I wouldn't. As a Chiefs fan, I saw Brady play Mahomes in Arrowhead in the AFC title game, and the Chiefs in that game, they made mistakes that the Pats just didn't. I mean, even though the Pats lost the turnover battle, if you go back and look, there were some throws that Chiefs should have had. They should have scored on. They missed, whatever. I think it's got to be Green Bay, though. Green Bay to me is the team. They were the 1 seed last year. That game was on their racket. If you're Rodgers and you retire and you don't win another Super Bowl, you'll wake up thinking about that game a lot of days going forward. So I think but it's similar to the AFC. I think the Chiefs are heads and tails above everybody else. Buffalo could beat them. Maybe Cleveland could beat them. But similar to Kansas City, if Tampa plays its best game, I just think Tampa's better. I do.
Yeah. So, no, I'm with you. And Seattle's a good pick to bring up because, you can't just sort of have a 2-team argument. But with Seattle, you were talking about how it was the last year in New England with Brady where everything's on his shoulders. It just seems like it's been with Russell Wilson for the past few years. Yes. He's going to pull 2 or 3 games out of his hat because of his feet and his competitiveness, but they can't keep him upright when it counts. And they're going to win 10, 11 games. They're going to get knocked out in the first round or the first sort of wild card round, because once push comes to shove and you got to, everyone's got to fire on all cylinders to win a game. Like you said, best on best, and no one makes a dumb mistake. Seattle just can't hang. It's their offensive line. Their offensive line can't hang, and their defense isn't anything like it used to be. No, it just isn't.
Let's wrap up just looking at the South itself. And the question we have for you here, Ren, is will it be wrapped up by Thanksgiving? Maybe Sam Darnold goes big. I don't know. The resurgent Falcons. New Orleans figures out their quarterback situation and just moves on from Drew Brees, or is this thing over by Thanksgiving? What do you think?
I think it's over by Thanksgiving, but it would be a very Bucs story for Jameis Winston to come hot out of the gates and and be some, I don't know, 8-3 or 8-2 by Thanksgiving. And it's a real horse race, or Brady goes down week 1. I don't know. He's hit by a bus and Blaine Gabbert's, 5-4 and, we're 3 games back of the Saints. I've actually picked the Panthers to come in second in the division. I know it's a huge question mark with Darnold, but I like Matt Rule. He can turn around a program real fast. He made a very quick decision with Teddy Bridgewater. He refused to throw the ball down the field. Can't be our guy. They have spent a ton of draft capital in the past 2 drafts in their defense, and they're young. They're still a year away, I think, from competing. But since, you said earlier, Mark, how bad, the NFC South is, and Atlanta's such a wild card. If their defense can just improve this much, they can win 2 more games. They improve this much, they can win 4 more games. The offense is going to be there with or without Julio Jones. It just always has been. Adding Michael Pitts, another unicorn tight end that the league seems everyone has nowadays. But I mean, if you held a gun to my head, and that's how I always make these big decisions, I would lean towards yes, the Bucs will have the division wrapped up by Thanksgiving.
I think they will too. I mean, you look at their schedule. There's some tough road games at the Rams, week 3, at the Saints. It's a rivalry. It'll always be a game that's tough. I actually think coming out of the bye, now it does help you out of the bye, but week 10 at Washington, like Washington can play defense.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting game. At week 12, the Colts will see if that's a tough game. That's right around Thanksgiving. I just think the rest first of all, I think Tampa is going to win 13, 14 games. And I look at that division, it's like, who else is winning 9?
Right.
Carolina, I think, is probably a 7-win team. Atlanta is probably that. I mean, look, I'll give the Saints respect in this regard. They have a very good head coach,
mm-hmm.
and it's a very good offensive line with Kamara behind it. But if Michael Thomas isn't there, who the hell's catching the football? I mean, I don't know who that is. Defensively, the Saints are better than people realize. I think the only way this stays a real race is if the Saints defense really carries the mail for them early. They find their footing offensively, and the Bucs maybe they're a slow out of the game. They have some injury issues, and it's one of these things that 12 games into the year, the Bucs are 9-3, and the Saints are like 8-4 or something. But I think it's over. I think the NFC South of all the divisions in the league, I think is the one where I just look at and go, I just can't make an argument for anybody else to win the division.
Hey, Ren, great stuff. We really appreciate you joining us. The PewterCast for all your Buccaneer conversation needs is right there for you. My first ever NFL game in person, I believe, at least that I can remember right now, was Bucs versus Bears, Super Bowl season 1985, week 1, Bears 38, Bucs 28. Yours truly, Mark Carman with Papa Fred in the family section in the end zone at Soldier Field. It was a beautiful, glorious, sunshiny Florida day in Chicago. So I've always had an affection for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Doug Williams.
Somebody to beat up on. So who was toting the rock? Was it Peyton or was it John L. Williams?
Yeah, right. Well, we used to Walter used to have some success against Tampa, but that wasn't exactly unique. He had a lot of success in his career. Hey, Ren, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. Enjoyed being on. It was really good talk. I love talking to knowledgeable fans. So anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our guy, DeMarcus Ware. Ren Daxt, the PewterCast, making me feel like I want to be a Bucs fan just to hang out with Ren more. Let's do in or out. Matt Verderame. All 4 NFC West teams will finish with a winning record. What do you say, my friend? In or out?
I'm out. I think 3 of them will.
Who's under?
I think Arizona's under because, look, I think the Cardinals are one of the best last place teams of all time. I just think, it's just going to be hard to get 4 teams with a winning record when you factor they're going to play each other. I don't know that it's ever happened in NFL history where a whole division's been above 500. So,
well, if they all split all their games, it could happen. That's not.
Yeah, no, I of course, but I just think that's that's hard, right? Like one of those teams will probably go 2-4 in the division or something. And look, you also have to factor in just injuries happen, stuff like that. Like one of those teams will have some snake bitten stuff. Like last year it was the Niners. It could be another team this year. I think 3 of them will be of winning records. Seattle to me, and the Rams and the Niners are the 3 strongest teams. And really, you could put them in any order you want. Like that is, to me, that division is fascinating in the sense that really they're all very good. They all have like obvious questions too.
Exactly. I don't think any of them are elite/dominant, even if Seattle gets their stuff completely put back together. So I will take the in on this one, Verderame. It'll be one of our It'll be one of our added bets. I think that anomaly will happen in the NFC West. They're all over 500. We can add that to our Bears bet that Justin Fields won't start in the month of September. What's the payment on that again? Do we ever clarify that
for our Fields bet?
Yes.
It's like a minute-long tweet where we have to pin our tweet and say how great the other person is.
Oh, right. So yes, I think I'd like to double, maybe half down, and you can make it 90 seconds of Carm gloriousness at yeah. Okay, let's look at a little stick with the old NFC West and throw in the NFC North with Justin Fields and Trey Lance. They'll lead their teams to the playoffs, in or out. I'll start on this one because I'm definitely out on the Bears being a playoff team. The defense is shaky, and so is the offensive line, and I don't see that changing. So I'm out on the Bears for sure being in the playoffs. Verderame.
I too am out. I am very intrigued though by Trey Lance. Like, you've heard at a camp how he just looks incredible. And by the way, Justin Fields looks pretty damn good too. And everything you hear about him is he's pretty good. And I look forward to winning my bet by about week 2 when he's on the field. Because they just can't take watching Andy Dalton check down on 3rd and 6 anymore. So I think that both guys are going to be good. I think both guys are going to be involved in their team's plans this year. Fields out of necessity. Lance, A, might force himself on the field. B, Garoppolo just always gets hurt. So I feel like at some point Lance will get his time to shine. If he does shine, does he ever come off the field? I don't know. But I'm out because I agree. I just think the Bears, I think it's a tough road for them to get to the playoffs. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's tough.
It's not impossible. Minnesota's a little wonky. And
now the quarterback's in a plexiglass box.
Exactly.
Apparently. So that's never helping.
And listen, they were not a dominant team last year, and they snuck their way into the playoffs. It could happen, but right. I'm gonna bet against it. Yeah. If you win the Justin Fields bet, it's because they started him week 1 and Matt Nagy went completely against his word, would be my prediction. Or Dalton gets hurt, one of the two.
I will continuously say they are going to play the Rams week 1. They're going to score like 9 points. Dalton's going to throw 100, he's going to throw 25 passes for 140 yards. And they are just going to be like, yeah, you know what? We're good. Like, Fields looks ridiculous. Why are we wasting time with this? And by the way, and I'll throw this out real quick because it actually applies to both teams. Stop already with the whole, like, well, that's what the Chiefs did with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. Alex Smith was a far better quarterback than Andy Dalton. Like, this idea that, like, well, no, it was not the same. Kansas City was winning divisional title after divisional title with Alex Smith. Like, they were a very good football team. Maybe a ceiling on them, but a very good football team. And so they had the ability to do that. The Bears have no such ability. Like the Niners, it's more of an apt comparison. The Bears, every time somebody says that, I want to punch through a screen. Like, that is not a comparison. It's an awful comparison.
Did you hear that? Do not make that comparison. Verderame will find you and he will hurt you. This guy played high school hockey and was an enforcer in the middle of New York somewhere. Where'd you grow up again?
Grew up in Livingston, New York, which is about 90 minutes outside of Manhattan.
Damn straight. And you kicked people's ass up there. You did not mess around.
It's an interesting area of the country. A lot of anger.
All right, let's move on to the Steelers. They'll finally have a losing record under Mike Tomlin. I'm not betting against Pittsburgh, man. Big Ben's going to squeeze that lemon one more time. Last drop. Tomlin, you're the man. Steelers in. What do you got?
I think they're finally going to have a losing record, man. And I'm not 100% on that, which is why I put this on. I think it's an interesting question, right? Like, you could definitely sell me they'll win 9 games or something. Here's my biggest problem with the Steelers. That offensive line is terrible. Like, terrible. And you're not scheming that line because Roethlisberger's a statue. It's not like you have Josh Allen back there or Mayfield or Mahomes, or of course, like a Lamar Jackson, where you could roll guys out and get them on. I mean, it's a line where think about the turnover here. Alejandro Villanueva has been a left tackle there forever. He's gone. Okay, he's in Baltimore now. Now, he was bad last year, but fair enough. He's been there a long time. Marquise Pouncey, just center for a decade there. Gone. Retired. David DeCastro, all-pro guard there for years on end. Gone. Cut. Matt Filer, good solid guard last year, gone, signed with the Chargers. Who did they replace these guys with? Like Trey Turner is one of them. Trey Turner's talented, he's always hurt. They have nobody else. Their line is brutal. And then you pair that with Roethlisberger, who can't throw the ball anymore. Like if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm like, this is great. I'm stacking 8 guys. We're gonna run blitz the hell out of this team. We're gonna jam up the receivers. We have no fear of them going over the top. And I think the defense is good, but it lost Bud Dupree. All right, it lost Steven Nelson. It lost Mike Hilton. I think they're like a 7 or an 8 win team in what is a pretty good division, by the way.
Yep. I listen, if you can't protect up front, and thank you for underlining all the changes, it's an issue. There's no way around it. I somehow think they're going to figure it out enough that
they might.
But that's
challenges.
I don't feel super confident in my in or out on that one. Let's wrap up with Zach Wilson, who is not having a training camp to remember. Lots of struggles, lots of interceptions. Nobody behind him. He's the only quarterback really that's like, you're starting, dude.
Yeah.
And now Robert Saleh, their head coach, is saying, remember, Peyton Manning threw 28 picks and he sucked in 98 for the Colts. So let's not judge this guy right now.
That's the same. That's the same thing.
Well,
I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say that I remember talking to people in the league, like high-ranking people, that the former decision makers, scouts in the league, people who would know. And while nobody's ever 100% on about a quarterback, God knows there's opinions all over the place. I remember in about February talking to someone who I have a lot of respect for, who's been on the personnel side of things in the NFL for over 25 years. And I asked that person about their opinion on the quarterbacks. And their opinion was, look, Lawrence is absolutely number one. They loved Justin Fields. Thought Trey Lance had a lot of traits. Thought he was worth the first-round pick. Obviously, a little concerned about the lack of experience. We got to Zach Wilson. And I don't want to say it was verbatim because this was from February. It was basically, I do not understand it. I cannot believe someone's going to take him with a first-round pick. The guy was completely average his entire time at BYU. And then had a good year and a COVID year. And he's like, he played behind a great line with a good running game. I would not go near him in the first round. Now, that is one opinion. Okay. It doesn't mean that he's going to be terrible. The point is there were some red flags with him that I don't think that my source there is the only person who felt that way. There are a lot of people who I talked to who shared similar concerns. And I don't necessarily put a ton of stock in how he looks in training camp and his 8th practice in the NFL ever. But there have been times you'll read a report about it and he was 11 of 24 today with 2 picks. Against the Jets defense, that's not great. And he knows he's not going to get hit. That's the other part of that. Normally in camp, as a quarterback, you're slinging it around pretty good because you're I'm not going to get sacked. I don't have to worry about the pressure. You're 11 of 24 with a couple of picks? Really? That's at least a little concerning.
Yeah, and by the way, when news like this comes out on quarterbacks when they're young, most times the news continues to go in that direction. It doesn't turn around for Brock Osweiler. It didn't turn Paxton Lynch. We can go down the list of guys who were getting early. This guy doesn't look the part at all. I don't know if you can think of an example where people thought that the quarterback was terrible and then all of a sudden he turned out to be great. Does anyone pop to mind on that?
I mean, in terms of the pre-draft process, a lot of people crushed the Chargers taking Herbert.
No, but once I'm talking about once training camp
starts on the field.
Yeah.
No, I mean, because the guys in recent memory who have been first-round picks, who people are like, yeah, he just can't play immediately. Osweiler's a good one. He's a second-round pick, but he's a good one. Paxton Lynch was a guy who just I remember watching Paxton Lynch, and I am by no means a quarterback evaluator, but I believe it was against the Niners. They played a preseason game his rookie year, and I watched it just obviously, curious, first-round quarterback. It was evident within a drive. You're like, there's just no chance. I mean, he can't process what he's seeing. He has no shot. Mark Sanchez was kind of like that. Tim
Tebow was like that.
Trubisky was fairly obvious. He had a lot of limitations. I mean,
in the preseason,
immediately.
Right. Johnny Manziel.
Yeah. I mean, look, The concern you have with the Jets is that Wilson had one good year at BYU, and he's going to a team that is not exactly a stellar track record in developing young quarterbacks.
Right.
Now, to be fair, Robert Saleh's never had to do that. I mean, it's not his fault they couldn't develop a quarterback since Joe Namath, but it is something to touch on. And by the way, speaking of touching on stuff real quick, wanted to get on a few of these. Couple of very nice reviews as of late, and there's 3 of them, and so I want to touch on all of them. One of which gets on my case, and that's fine. Happy to answer to it. From Club Cool Collection. Says, Jay, chill on the politics. Love the pod, but you guys have to chill on the liberal political slant. Verderame's Twitter account is half sports and half Republican bashing at this point. Not a way to keep an audience. Stick to sports, gentlemen. Did give us 5 stars, though. To that, I say, first of all, thank you for rating and for leaving a comment. I appreciate the thought. I will tell you this. I don't like to get into my own personal life a whole lot in terms of like my own thoughts. I am legitimately about as down the middle politically as you'll ever find. I know that may shock people and may not even believe it. I am an independent. So believe me, I will, if I will try to keep the politics out as much as possible because I don't want people to get bogged down with that. I don't. And that's never the goal, but yes, every once in a while I will talk about it because I am interested in it. And, I appreciate you sticking with me through it, but just know, I'm not bashing Republicans. I'm really not. I have nothing against, I just say what I feel, and God knows I've had plenty to say about Democrats too in the past. So anyway, thank you for the review and thank you for the thought. I do appreciate it. Had another review from 8347 and then a whole bunch of letters. I apologize, I'm not going to go through them all. Excellent, 5 stars. Great job, both of you guys. Carm, my guy. I can't say I loved you when you first came on the pod, but you've grown on me like a weed, man. You're doing great. Keep it up. Love what you're doing. Matt, obviously you're crushing it, man. Appreciate the insight into the league. And of course, your X's and O's breakdown are great. Keep doing what you're doing. Love the pod. Thank you very much. I'm glad Carm has grown on you. It's
one of the greatest compliments I've ever received. I mean, all I really set out to do in life was be an annoying weed that you just don't want to cut.
Hey, look, you should be very thankful that you've grown on people. Most people you don't grow on.
Right. I'm the weed in the yard that you, for whatever reason, just like, okay, we'll just let him hang out over there and not get the old weed whacker out. Thank you very much.
Now, this one, of course, I had to read this. This is from Susie Met 303. Verderame is my favorite. Verderame, you provide the most unique perspective of anyone in the NFL. That is high praise from Susie, and I'm taking it. And I might frame that, put it on my wall in the office. Question for you. Whatever happened to Eric Berry? Never heard anything about what happened to him. We know he was hurt, but nothing about him retiring, trying out with other teams, etc. And I read this.
Eric Berry, you remember the rap? Go ahead.
Yeah. I read this one off for 3 reasons. One, thank you very much for the 5-star rating. Second of all, listen, if it's that nice about me, I'm going to read it. And third, it is actually a really good question. Like, here's a guy who was named to the all-decade team. He was a great player. And Eric Berry was not a good player. He was a great player. He's got a borderline Hall of Fame case. Okay? When you look at his career, here's a guy who overcame a torn ACL, overcame cancer, played in 5 Pro Bowls, a 3-time first-team All-Pro, Hall of Fame, All-2010 team, 2015 AP Comeback Player of the Year. I mean, that is a hell of a resume. But only played 9 seasons. And of those 9 seasons, 3 of them he played in 2 games or less. So he would be the Terrell Davis, Kenny Easley type, where his career was just great, but in a short window. My answer is he's not retired. He's still technically active. He could sign with anybody. I have tried to track down this story. I have reached out to his representatives many times over the last year and a half. I have tried to write it. As much as I can understand of it, is I just think at this point, I don't know that any team really believes he's healthy enough to play. And by the way, that's just my opinion. That's not a source thing, right? I've tried to get source stuff on it. Nobody's really talked. I just think it's more of a, can he really play? I mean, if you'll go back to the last 2 years of his career, he dealt with the torn Achilles, that he suffered in the week 1 opener, 2017. 2018, he came back. He played 2 games. He couldn't really come back from it. And then the Chiefs caught him at the age of 30, and that was it. I don't think you'll ever see him play again. At some point, he'll officially retire. But he was a comet. He really was. He was one of the better safeties you'll ever see.
He was a phenomenal draft pick. It was surprising that the Chiefs picked a safety that high. He made an immediate impact.
Yes.
And he was really a huge part of the turnaround at that point. It was like, oh, they actually made a really good outside the box draft selection, and he was that defense. He was a huge leader on it, and that was a good defense too.
It was. I mean, he played on defense with a lot of guys: Brandon Flowers, Derek Johnson, Tom Bailey.
Yep.
Tom
Bailey, very famous for doing his interviews at his locker with Untitled Verderame.
It is what it is. He's a hell of a player.
He'd be hanging out.
I will tell you, just the question got me in my feels a little bit thinking about Eric Berry, because I loved them at a time when they were just god awful for so many of those years. And I will say, if there's one thing, as just from a fan's perspective, that always kind of bummed me out a little bit, was they won the Super Bowl right after Eric Berry and Derek Johnson and Tomba left. All those guys, to me, hey, listen, it's sports. It's the way it is. Not all great players win it all. But I always, and the Chiefs, by the way, were right in all their moves with those guys. They moved on at the right time. But it was just too bad, because those guys, they put in a lot of time. They deserve the ring.
Yeah, there's honorary rings for all three is a fair statement. You guys should talk about that on the Arrowhead Attic podcast. Yeah. Let's wrap it up here. Verderame, you watching some Knicks Summer League hoop?
I am. First, we should say, first of all, thank you for everyone listening. There's not going to be a show next week. I will be in San Francisco on vacation with my wife. You will be on vacation, I believe, New York?
No, I am going to Camp Nebagam on family camp without a family. Very much excited to.
You allowed to do that? Will they let you go?
You are allowed, as in whatever form you are, married with kids, not married.
Is your wife attending with you?
She's not coming. She is not interested in family camp. So
Can I ask why you're interested in family camp?
I'm interested in family camp, Verderame, because I need a little time in the woods. I need a little unplug. I need one of my good buddies is going up there, so I'm going to hang with him. And
where is this camp?
Camp Nebagam is northern Wisconsin, about 30 miles south of Duluth, Minnesota.
Oh wow, okay. You're up there.
It's on Lake Nebagam. We'll get the sailboat out. We'll get the canoe out. There's tennis going on. There's hoops. I've never done it, to be honest. I just assume it's going to be great. I've wanted to do it for many years. So
okay, I can't knock that. That sounds fun. I give you that.
Yeah. The wife is not thrilled about me taking this trip, but these things happen.
What it is.
These things happen.
If it makes you feel better, look, and I'll get in the next summer league. I know everybody's waiting on bated breath, but I am my cousin's getting married August 29th in Jersey, and so I'm driving home. I'm going to stay there for about a week. I'll just work from New York, and my wife, who really does not ever really care much, she can't go because her cousin's getting married the day prior, so we're kind of splitting the baby there. But she was like, "Great, so you're gonna drive out what? Friday, Saturday? Yeah, She's like, "When do you come back? Tuesday, Monday?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know, maybe the next weekend." And that did not go over particularly well, but she's accepted that that's just going to happen. Look, I don't get to go back to New York all that often. It's usually one trip in the summer, so I'm going back, and I'm going to be doing a little bit what you're doing, a little boating, a little fishing, relax, hang out. Obviously, I'll be working as well, so I kind of have to intermingle those things. But the more important thing, Knicks Summer League. I never thought I'd watch 2 seconds of that crap, and my God, is it crap. But Obi Toppin's looking pretty good. Emmanuel Quickly's looking good. And my guy, Jericho Sims, the 58th overall pick in the draft, man, is lighting it up in Vegas. Lighting it up. Looks good.
I've got one text chain that is rolling through, and they're all talking Bulls summer camp and Patrick Williams, and just a lot of excitement around the Bulls right now with their Lonzo Ball / DeMar DeRozan offseason of love. Yes.
I think this is a perfect place to end this thing. If you're a Bulls fan, I am a Knicks fan. The Bulls have been very active this offseason. Where do you put the Bulls in the Eastern Conference looking at it today?
I think they're a playoff team, but I don't think they're very good. I think they're,
Are they better than the Knicks?
Are they better than the Knicks? They might be better than the Knicks. They might be. I end of the day, I probably would take New York in that equation, but DeRozan's a good player still.
He is.
And even though he's 32, and I
A
think
lot of money. but he's a good
insane
player.
money, but he's their best player, I think. I mean, people would say
More
it's
than
Zach.
Levine?
Well, Zach doesn't play both ends. So, and I think DeMar also, there's a winning factor to DeMar that maybe it's unfair to Zach, but the fact remains that nobody has lost more basketball games in the NBA in the time period that Zach LaVine has been in the league than Zach LaVine. So I do think it's fair to wonder his impact on winning basketball games. So DeMar is that's a legit player. We'll see what Lonzo does, man. I don't love Lonzo, but I do like him.
Good. He's steadily improved. I don't,
6'6" guy who's a true point guard who can guard. They don't grow everywhere. And he shoots it okay. Maybe even better than okay.
We'll have to go to a Knicks Bulls game. I've never seen a Knicks game ever in person. So we will have to go to a Knicks Bulls game because no two teams could be more different than each other. Like the Knicks it's a death match to 90. They're going to play defense. The Bulls aren't going to play an ounce of defense outside of Ball and DeRozan. It's just going to be an absolute up and down. Like the Bulls are going to try to score 115 points. I'm very curious to see how those teams play when they see each other.
All right, this is the year. Bulls, Knicks, Verderame, Carman, United Center. Maybe we'll just go to the Garden. That'd be even better.
We should really just go to the Garden, Frank.
The Garden would be amazing. All right, hey, just to back up what Matt said, thank you so much for all the comments. We really, really appreciate it. It feels good to know that people are enjoying the pod. And yeah, keep them coming. Have a great trip, Verderame. I'll miss you next week, but I'll see you the following, and we are almost there, baby. Football right around the corner.
Sounds good, man. Take care.
This podcast is brought to you by FanSided. Join our community of over 300 sites from sports to pop culture and everything in between.